Well, the Chicago mayoral election is fast approaching. It's on February 26th of 2019, and there are currently 15 people running for the city's top seat. Here at the Jam, we're of course helping you get to know the candidates a little bit better. That's why we've got Troy Laraviere. He's joining us now. He's a native Chicagoan. He grew up on the city's south side. He served in the U.S. Navy before becoming an educator, and he's also a former principal and now sits as president of the Chicago Principals and Administrators Association. Hello and good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. Your name has definitely been in the mix, so I think a lot of people, they want to know more. They want to know more about Troy. So let's actually talk education. You are a former principal at award-winning Blaine Elementary. That's on the city's north side.
Right.
Wonderful. And so you actually lost your job after being very critical of the mayor as well as the school board. Can you tell us, your big push right now is to hire more teachers?
Absolutely.
Is that how you want to solve some of the issues there?
Exactly. Chicago Public Schools is the most understaffed school district in Illinois. The average Illinois school with 600 kids has 59 staff members. The average Chicago public school with the same 600 kids has 37 staff members. So that's 22 fewer staff for the same number of students. So that's 5 teachers, that's a counselor, a case manager, a nurse, a social worker, a truant officer, and 10 other staff that I haven't even mentioned yet that the average Illinois kid has access to that Chicago public school students do not have. And so we're severely understaffed, and we need to address the understaffing crisis.
So would you say that they're working just with a base skeleton? Because a lot of people, we know a lot of schools are closing. More than 50 schools have been closed in recent years. And it's associated with being able to afford all the students that we do have. So will there be money for 10,000 more teachers?
Absolutely. What we have to look at is that even though we're the most understaffed school district, we're not the most underfunded. We actually spend $2,000 more per pupil than the average school district. So how can you be above average in funding and dead last in staffing? What are you spending your money on? And that gets back to why I spoke out so much, because our district is corrupt. That we're spending money on hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions of dollars on companies like the Aramark custodial company that's leaving our schools filthy. Oh, and they just happen to have donated $250,000 to our mayor's campaign fund. These were the kinds of things that I was calling out, this mismanagement of money. So we don't need a lot of new money. We need to realign the spending of existing money so that it goes towards the classroom and not towards the mayor's campaign donors.
Okay, I'm really interested to get your perspective on charter schools. Are you for them or against them?
I am against many of the practices that charter schools engaged in. You can't be for or against the whole kind of school, but when you look at what they do, they don't get academic growth from their students to the degree that public schools do. They abuse their suspension and expulsion system. There's a charter school in this city that a couple of years ago, it was one of the Noble schools, had an expulsion rate 251 times the district average. Not 251%, 251 times the number of kids that are expelled in a regular Chicago public school, they expelled. What kind of culture and climate do you have in that school where you have to expel 251 times the number of kids of the district average? They hyper-segregate kids, and they increase the achievement gap. So to the extent that a charter school engages in these practices, I can't support it. To the extent that they don't, then, we can talk.
Okay, we only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to keep it moving. Another hot button issue that the city has been buzzing about, the Van Dyke trial. What was your reaction when you heard the guilty verdict?
So, I was glad to see there was a guilty verdict, but right after that, there was a case where an officer shot a young man in the back of the head where they cleared this officer. And so we have a long way to go. At the end of the day, if you have a government, part of my campaign, a big part of my campaign, it focuses on ending corrupt government. The fact that people with a lot of money can buy a politician and make our government work for them and not for us. So if you have a corrupt government, policing is controlled by government. So if your government's corrupt, then they will use your police force in a corrupt manner. And so I'm going in to change government so that we can change policing.
We have 1 minute left, but you're mentioning corruption. Do you think term limits play a role in that? And are you for or against term limits for the mayor?
So what I think about term limits is that if money is the problem, right, the fact that we can buy off a politician and that politician is basically a puppet, what term limits does is it changes out the puppets every few years and leaves the puppeteers in place. We have to get the corrupt money out of politics. If we get the corrupt money out and get the puppeteers out, then there'll be no need to term limit the puppets because you won't have puppets. So I would be for term limits if we can have public financing of elections, for example, to go with those term limits. That way we ensure that the money that's corrupting the system is not there.
Stricter laws against that is what you're asking for.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. I know we can be here all day, but we only have 5 minutes, and we're trying to make sure we get all of our mayoral candidates on. The Chicago mayoral election is February 26th of 2019. This is Troy Laraviere, and he is running for mayor of Chicago. You can find out more about his platform at troyforchicago.com. And also check out our other candidates that we've interviewed on our show at thejamtvshow.com. You can find our Voters Resource Center with more information.